Should I raise the volume or the roof?
I think you should do this in order. First do the roof, and then the volume.
Hello, friends! Welcome to User-Friendly, episode 84. I am your co-host, Roberto Hoyos, and I am kind of like the guy behind Throwboy.com, and I'm here with my friend.
I'm Erfon Elijah. You might know me from the Cultcast podcast, the podcast that talks about all things Apple each and every week.
Sometimes stretching it a little bit.
Hey, my show, my rules. Boing, as everything snapping back into place.
And User-Friendly is a weekly show where we talk about technology, sometimes the news,
and all things Greek.
And our favorite stuff on the web. Boom. Done.
Yeah, it's not as catchy as our last one, but we gotta come up with something better. Yes, sirree, and boy, do we have a great show planned for you guys today.
It's been a while. It feels like a long time.
It feels like it's been like a whole week since we've done this.
My month is going by very slow. I don't know about you.
I feel like my whole summer has flown by. It's almost September now.
The reason why I think the month is going by really slow is because I'm doing a video every day. So every day is like I'm accountable for making a video.
My life has been hell.
Yeah. So now I'm like at the end of this, this
gosh.
timeline. And
that's true.
Normally I don't really mind it, but like I guess it's because I've been doing more of a outwardly vlogging style where I'm like having to walk around and then cut that up at the end of the day and then edit it, then put it into a video.
That's a lot.
But yeah, this counts actually. This is one of the.
Do you count this?
Yeah.
Do you count the video game videos that you do?
Of course.
Okay, anything that you do that's a video.
Dude.
What if you watch a video on Netflix? Does that count?
Yeah, I wish. I'm not alone here. I know some people watch the show and they're like, "Oh my God, Vita needs to be over."
It sounds like a huge amount of work. I mean, coming up with the content for that. Sometimes it takes me 30 minutes just to come up with a title for my Cult of Mac post.
That's too long.
You got to get just right, and it has to be short and concise.
Quippy.
It has to be quippy, and it has to be a pun.
Dude, okay, I have a prediction for the next, 10, 15 years.
Okay.
For marketing. I think that puns are going to be overdone. We're not going to see that anymore. It's going to
Is the pun overdone?
It's going to trend
Boom,
out.
Title.
Because right now every marketing has to be a pun, Yeah. And I'm guilty of it too, and I think I like it, but I think that we're going to have a shift at some point.
You think that after all the years of human history, the puns are just going to be over?
No, in marketing.
Oh, okay, specifically.
No, in marketing.
I think the puns are over.
No.
No one's going to do puns anymore.
It's over. No, in marketing, because right now it's really hot.
So you feel like a lot of people do puns in marketing? I haven't really noticed.
Oh, I guess maybe I just look at it a lot,
Yeah, I try to avoid marketing messages as often as possible.
I saw a really good one though. McDonald's is pretty good on their billboards. It said
they are good. Yep.
It said it had a $1 soda or whatever, and it said $1 a pop. I was like, that's good. Because we call it pop in Washington, so it's perfect, right?
Yeah, I don't call it that, but yeah, a lot of people do. There was something else that McDonald's did on a billboard, and it had a pun in it as well.
All of them are puns.
Yeah, and they're memorable, and they're short.
Hold the yolk is one of them, or all yolks aside for their Egg McMuffin that's white, the white Egg McMuffin.
Whoever the team that comes up with those probably gets paid like $100 million a year.
Yeah, they're really good. But,
they are.
I just think that just the same way as fonts trend out, that marketing style has to trend out. Like in Helvetica, where they talked about look at the way that it was done in the 50s, and that changed so much because that got so passe.
Now it's on the way back.
Yeah.
Still, just like high-waisted shorts. Urban Outfitters are selling Urban MC Hammer pants, and they're like $50, and they have 20 different styles now.
Yeah, and the same kind of hats too.
Yeah, I feel like that all that fashion is coming back now.
It's pretty ugly though.
All right, well, I wanted to talk about a little something that I thought was really interesting, and we don't necessarily need to talk about it that long. Okay. So, if you listen to the Cultcast, which if you watch this show, you probably do, we had Kyle Wiens from iFixit on last week, it's always interesting, and I'm glad I for anyone that listens to Cultcast, if you watch this show, you're probably like one of our main people for Cultcast. You probably listen all the time, you really like the show. So it's cool having this direct channel directly to you guys where we don't have to talk about Apple stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. Whenever we have guests on, I always hear, good or bad, what people think. Which is one of the things I love about our audience is they're very outspoken and we're very interactive with each other, which I love. Mm-hmm. But this particular show, I cannot believe the response we got. There were people who were emailing me and tweeting me and dropping F-bombs. They were pissed that we had let this guy on this show.
Seriously?
Yeah, really angry. Like, genuinely angry. And no one was mad at me. They were just trying to vocalize the fact they didn't like his opinions. They didn't like what he was saying about Apple.
Oh, my God.
And this is the worst guest we've ever had. I had one guy he's like, you lost a fan. He's like, I'm not listening to your show anymore. Dead serious. Like, he was that upset about it. And
it's okay. I'll tell two people, so you'll be fine.
Please, yeah. Would you help us get back up our numbers? And I was really surprised. But then I also got emails from people who said, this is the best show you've ever done. Loved having Kyle on the show. Please have him back. Really interesting points of view.
I loved it, by the way. And I've heard this guy in another interview, and I'm like, this guy is on the ball. Like,
first of all, he's really intelligent.
Yeah, he is.
Whether you like what he has to say or not, he runs a really successful business. He has 50 employees. Very hardworking guy. Super articulate, as you heard.
Yeah.
He was very good at expressing his opinions.
Yeah. I think he has actually more than the 50. I was just thinking.
Anyway, so really successful business. And I didn't, from what he was saying, I didn't get the impression that he was anti-Apple. I talked to him before the show, so I got more FaceTime with him. Than you guys did, because we talked for a while before we started the show, and he is a huge Apple fan, and honestly, if you think about it, he wouldn't be in business if Apple was selling easily upgradable computers, because you wouldn't need the things that he sells.
Yeah, because their primary income is from tools.
Yeah, selling, toolkits, just like he said on the show.
They sell them to Apple. Did you know that?
Do they really?
Yeah, they're like the #1 provider to Apple. Yeah.
To fix their own products.
Yeah.
So I thought he made a lot of really valid points, such as the fact that it's so toxic building these machines, and Apple is building in, they're making their computers harder to fix.
Yeah.
Planned obsolescence.
I love that word.
Which I've heard before. I mean, and Apple's not the only company to do this. They do this, to make it so that you have to buy something from them in the future, which, for better or for worse, is something that a lot of companies do. Mm-hmm. So, you said you liked it.
Yeah, I did.
You weren't angry.
No.
You didn't message me and yell at me.
You think that he is anti-Apple now?
I don't think he's anti-Apple at all. In fact, I think it was a great show, regardless of what people liked it or not, just because I feel like it's part of our place is to put people on the stage and just ask them what they think. And I could sit there and argue with him, but I want to hear what he has to say. I don't want people to get defensive when they come on the show.
It was really well done, man. I'm glad that you had him on. He is like a voice that you don't hear that often, where it's the flip side to just loving products based on aesthetics and UI and stuff like that. It's like he's talking about the manufacturing process, the what happens after, which is something that not a lot of people think about, when you get rid of your phone or whatever. I thought it was really fascinating. I would definitely suggest. What episode was that? 80-something?
I think it was 87.
Yeah. Go listen to
87,
that.
87, yeah.
Because as far as I know, I think that's probably the most I've ever heard him speak on this topic. Mm-hmm. And he would know, right?
Wow, he's really knowledgeable. And he's super duper involved in the supply chain. Mm-hmm. I mean, he gets a lot of his parts from the same place Apple buys their parts.
Yeah.
Or sometimes he's only like 1 or 2 middlemen away from the same suppliers.
I'm surprised I'm surprised and sort of like shame on the Apple community that didn't like it, that they would get upset that he said those things, because all he's doing is telling facts. And if you are just so blinded that you just want to believe that Apple just needs to give you the warm, fuzzy feelings and you can't think of anything that they could possibly do wrong, like, come on. I lost that Kool-Aid drinking a long time ago. Because
Yeah.
not everybody's perfect, and neither is Apple.
And we're very fortunate. I mean, for those of us that live in, popular parts, I don't want to say popular parts.
Civilized places.
Very industrialized places in Europe, in the United States, we get access to products that are very, futuristic, and they're very inexpensive, at least, as far as our currencies are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But you do have to think about the aftermath of a lot of these products. And I thought that's what I took away from it. I mean, the one thing I remember that immediately comes to mind from that episode was that he said it takes 300 pounds of material to build one iPhone. 300 pounds either goes to waste or has to be re-recycled. Think of all the energy that goes into that and all the carbon that goes into that just for you to have your shiny product. And then I think about Mike Daisy, who did that monologue about Apple, which turned out to be not entirely true. But if you got to see it, it was incredible. And he painted a picture of what it's like to live in these factories where these things are assembled, and how some of these workers that are building these products could never afford one. They build them and they get shipped away, to the United States or wherever.
Sure.
And they have no hope of owning one of those products.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that it's not all retail beauty and these awesome products that we love. I mean, there's a dark side to it.
It's just really with everything. I mean, you could go down that route with a lot of things, just waste management. You could go down this long route of where do things go after you actually throw them away, and blah, 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 and like reusing things, and everything kind of has that kind of dark side. But a lot of people don't want that. They want to know about like the nice things. They want to like be marketed to. They want to just buy, consume things. And as somebody that makes things, and as somebody that is working with factories and stuff, like I think about this kind of stuff a lot. And I also know that the real side of it is a lot of people don't give a crap. Like especially
most people don't.
Especially somebody like me, where I started very, very directly, where I was making the thing directly myself and selling it, and then people associate me with the person that makes it. And then as soon as I want to go off and do a grander thing, I get some people that have that kind of pushback where they're like, oh, well, you're not going to be making it anymore. Like, I would never buy something that was made in a factory, or I don't want to buy something that that's made in a factory. And I'm like, well, yeah, but the same people that are saying that are typing to me on a computer, which is made in China. And they're also the same kind of people that more than likely will walk into Target and go to that dollar section right in the front.
Right.
It's like the way that things are positioned, people can kind of get over it fast, And so that's why I feel like it's good that we have people like Kyle Ween.
Kyle Weens. Rhymes with beans.
Kyle Weens, because he gives you that other side of it, and you'll actually think about it instead of, and you might think about it and then it might go away, but there are people that it will affect, and they'll try to, just kind of build off of that. So I liked it a lot. And
it's at least worth thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
About.
And even little things that you could do to, I don't know, lessen the footprint of what your carbon footprint.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I even asked him. Oh, well, maybe not carbon footprint overall, but just as far as, Apple is concerned, and he didn't really have a great answer. I didn't think there's nothing definitive that you can do, but I think being cognizant of it and at least thinking about it is a good first step. The other thing I just want to mention quickly is just how it's so interesting to me. No matter what guests we have on, there are people that contact me that are pissed, and there are people that contact me that are happy. Almost always.
Oh, really?
Every guest. It does not matter. And that's probably the way it is when I'm on other shows, which I haven't been in a while, but when I was on Mac Break Weekly, I'm sure there's people who are like, oh, this guy seems pretty cool. And then there's probably other guys who are like, who is this guy? Yeah. This guy's a chode, like, what is he on this show for? And it really puts us in a weird position because, I want to have guests on that I think have a story or have something interesting to bring to the show. And now I have to think about the fact that, maybe their voice isn't going to sound quite right. And I've had people complain about guest voices before. And it's like, guys, come on. Like, I talk like a surfer. Somebody else talks like a valley person. There's just nothing you can do about it. Yeah. I mean, you talk. Your voice is pretty much pitch perfect.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
But, yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting.
One more quick thing before we jump into our discussion on the Ashton Kutcher. I'm sorry, Ashton
Ashton
Kutcher. I heard that's what he's going by now. He's very European. And we're going to be talking about that, the new Jobs movie versus Pirates of Silicon Valley, the previously most popular Apple movie. But I played, for those of you that follow me on Twitter, you probably saw, maybe you didn't, that I played an Xbox One. And by played, I mean basically just played around with it because there were no games. Zero.
So you played the UI.
I played the UI. It's very strange because... I mean, I'm sitting in front of this Xbox One. I have the controller in my hands, which, by the way, controller is magnificent. I was a little worried because I've heard people that review video games and stuff talk about how they didn't like it. I loved it. I think it's a huge improvement. Very, very small refinements that overall make a big difference.
Good.
The two triggers.
Butter.
Like butter. And really love the controller. The Kinect and the UI, it's very strange rooting around a product that is unfinished. It is unfinished. They have a lot of work to do on it.
Were you doing it in a way like you're sitting down and you're doing it in a natural way, or were you standing up like a chair?
No. I was sitting down. There was no one ushering me through the process. No one even watching me. I wasn't doing that. And just working with the Kinect and stuff and using the UI, and it was just so weird because it's like this beta version. They're coming out with updates really frequently to improve upon the software and stuff. But it's so weird because there's the marketing hype that you see, which is, you know, at this height where people are practically like frothing at the mouth to get their hands on this thing, and then you pass that and you're actually using the product and it's unfinished, and you're like, whoa, like disparity. There's a big gap between what you see and what it actually is presently. And I'm not trying to worry anyone. I think it's going to be amazing. They're just not finished with it yet.
From what I heard, when they actually did the demo where he's like, turn on NBC and all that stuff, that was somebody controlling it behind the scenes.
Really?
Yeah. And that's what my prediction was, because I'm like, usually these things aren't ready to ship, you know? So why would they be able to do that? No, and it's
not.
You know?
That seems very strange that they would do that. I mean, that's very... I mean, it's so synthetic. You shouldn't be able to pawn off that experience as legitimate if there's a guy behind the freaking curtain controlling it with a...
I don't know, man. All games do that. Because, like, when you go to E3, it will be... Like, I went to E3 2003, 2, something like that, when the Xbox 360 came out. And they had an Xbox 360 on a podium, and there was a shell, and it was, like, playing some demo game crap. And then if you look under that podium and you look through the crack, it was 2 G5 towers. Right? So, like, that's one industry where they can do that. I think with computers, and if you go to, like, what's it on CES, and if somebody had, like, this is our new machine, but it's really not actually that. It's back
you take the
here.
computer
it's
off,
like
there's like a Mac
the Wizard
in there.
of Oz, you know? That's not cool, right? But for some reason with games, it's like, oh, this is the experience, you know?
Interesting. The Xbox One looks beautiful. Wow. I mean, in person, some people don't like it. I really do. I think it looks amazing.
How big would you say it is with your hands?
I would say it's probably like this. It reminds me of the first Xbox.
That's what I was gonna say.
Except there's a disc slot in it. In fact, size-wise, it's probably very close.
That's probably intentional, honestly, and then they can do a sexy second version, you know?
Maybe. I think the first version looks sexy. Yeah, there you go, right? But overall, I had a very good experience with it. I'm really excited for this system. But it was just very strange. I mean, when you're using something that I've already paid for one, I've pre-ordered one, and then you start using it, and like not a lot of the functionality is there yet, and you're like, hey, I want to watch a movie, and it's like, oh, that doesn't work. Oh, I want to play a game. There are no games that exist. There's nothing to play. No, there's no game for it yet. You're like, oh, I can't really do anything with this yet.
Can you actually say, like, Xbox, do blah, blah, blah?
Yes, that you can do.
How does it work?
It's in beta.
Oh, wow. So
it's in beta.
Nothing
was seamless.
Just hardware is cool looking.
Yeah, and the other thing, though, too, is I didn't set up the Kinect for my own voice. It probably works a lot better. And plus... Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So, yeah.
Before you get in trouble.
It did work. It did work. And I'm not under an NDA or anything like that. I mean, actually, the door breaks in. Yeah. Steve Ballmer comes in here and just grabs me and starts pounding me. new Steve Ballmer news coming up too. We're going to talk about. That's all I'll say about that very exciting experience I thought I'd share. So let's talk about the movies.
The movies. Let's go to the movies.
Let's go to the movies. Do you want to go get some popcorn? What's that movie? Let's all go to the movies and get ourselves some treats.
Nice. Okay, so now that we're in that segment, so we decided that we wanted to each watch a different Steve Jobs movie, switch roles.
It's like, what was that movie where those two twins switched parents?
Parent Trap.
Parent Trap.
The movie Trap.
It's the Apple Trap is what we did.
And I went to watch Jobs just the other day with my bro. Mm-hmm. And I went, and you watched Pirates of Silicon Valley because you had already seen Jobs.
Yep.
And I had already seen Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Pirates of Silicon Valley was a TNT or TBS movie back in 2001 or 2000, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the Jobs movie is the Ashton Kutcher movie that just came out in 2013. So, where should we begin?
Why don't you start? Why don't you tell me what you thought about Jobs?
Oh my God.
Just only because I have talked about it so much. I just want to hear what someone else thinks.
Okay. All right. So I went to see Jobs. Doing this.
Should I get you a puke bag?
Hands together. And I wore my mock turtleneck.
Awesome. You must have been like the fourth or fifth person there dressed like that.
There's actually only 5 people in the theater when I saw it. There really were, though.
Was it the one right next to your house, though?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, I didn't like this movie. I thought this movie... I think when I left the theater, I was like, okay, it wasn't so bad, but there was stuff in there that were really bad. But now, looking back on it, I think the movie was pretty darn bad. Like, I would probably give it like a D or something, like,
yeah, okay.
not an absolute like horrible.
So you didn't hate
bomb.
it, but really disliked it.
It was pretty bad. I mean, like, I the only things I could do is say like, well, that was a good camera shot, like I can't really say that there was good things about it because this movie was a fanboy movie.
It really was.
This movie was nothing but a fan, a crazed fan over Steve Jobs, but did not really understand why Steve Jobs, his work or things that would be very pivotal to his career. It was like, I love Steve because he wears New Balance shoes and a mock turtleneck.
He's a fruitarian.
And he eats only fruit and all these surface level things about Steve Jobs
right.
that they pushed into this movie every chance they got. And this movie treated every little stupid detail like it was an epic event. There was string scores every 5 minutes in this stupid movie. Mm-hmm. Anytime anything would happen, the iPod.
Yeah, some woman's like in pure ecstasy.
I swear, like
herself.
Every time, and then it would pan to people's faces, and they'd be like in awe of this, of anything that happened, and it was like they would spend so much time on little things that had really no relevance to his whole story. They spent like a good hour in the garage stage of Apple, which I thought was totally stupid. And the reason why was because their consultant was actually Dan Koch. He was one of the like Apple employee number 3 or 4. So that's why that's probably why they put so much of that in there. And at first I was like, okay, it's kind of cool. We're getting to see a little bit more than the Pirates of Silicon Valley. We get to see him a little bit more at school. We get to see him a little bit more in the garage, kind of how that worked. We get to see his parents, which was kind of cool because you don't really hear about that unless you read the Walter Isaacson book, and they were actually like good, supportive parents because you just think of Steve Jobs as this like figure with no background, you know?
Right.
So that was kind of nice, but I felt like they spent way too long with it. There was a lot of fiction in this movie because, I mean, I'm a big Steve Jobs fan, and I know that a lot of stuff that they were doing was not actually how it went down. Mm-hmm. But way too much fawning over him, like the West Coast Computer Fair. People were not crowded around and listening to him speak like a performer. Like
he was like Jesus.
Yeah, this is going to change computer.
Yes.
Loud applause.
And you're like, why is everyone applauding at all these things that happen? It doesn't make any sense.
It didn't make any sense. It was just like the director loved Steve, but I don't think he got who he was. I think he was just like a surface level fan, like somebody that just started liking him in like 2004, you know, and didn't really get like, you know, just like when you have a blind love for some celebrity, right?
Yeah.
And you want to be like, I want to be the guy that makes it, put that in the movie. And every little tiny story you've ever heard about Steve Jobs, I got to be the guy that puts that in the movie, you know? And, oh my God, there was so many just like I said, everything was tried to be made epic about this movie. The scene where he found out his girlfriend was pregnant and ran to his room and started crying about it. And then he gets up and darts up, starts looking in the mirror, fixes his hair, tucks in his shirt, and that was supposed to be like some pivotal, like, oh, Steve's becoming a man now. Like,
oh, is that what you got out of that?
What the hell was
I was
that?
just confused.
Yeah, that was so stupid. And then the other part, they made a huge deal about the same kind of thing. He looks in the mirror and is like, starts shaving his beard, and they show like close-up shots of him like trimming his beard. I'm like, that. You think that the Steve Jobs story it should be talking about when he shaved his beard? Like that was such a pivotal
Every
thing.
story you've ever heard, I've said this before, is in this movie. I feel like they try to jam it packed.
But then the bad thing about it is they never get to like really actual substance to this movie. It's just like little anecdotal stories and then stupid stuff like, let's make Rod Holt ride up on a motorcycle and we're going to have like a good 15-minute scene about how he's going to do the power supply. It's like, cut that out. Why is that important to this whole story? And then all the Macintosh and Lisa stuff was like really surface level. I mean, they put time into casting people to be like all the real engineers on the Mac team and the Lisa team, but then they use them for like 2 seconds and they don't actually, they're just like, let's make sure we introduce Andy Hertzfeld. Let's make sure we say that's Burl Smith. It's like, yeah, we'll do something with them, you know? Don't just be like, that's the guy in the background, so now we know, we counted him. And at the end of the movie, they try to make it seem like they use that character by showing real version next to the actor version, like black and white photos. I'm like, you didn't even use those people in this movie. Don't try to act like it's Argo, and you're using those people throughout the whole movie, you know?
Yeah, right.
And let me see if there's anything else I can think of. Oh, okay. The last thing I really disliked, and I really, really hope that the next movie, the official Sony movie, does not do this, is they glazed over a 10-year span from where Steve was ousted from Apple to when Steve got back to Apple. And it was like, all of a sudden, they show like quick montage of like him at Next, which was just literally a press photo, and they don't talk about Pixar at all. And those two things are huge to his resurgence to coming back to Apple. But they decided to fill up time with boardroom meetings and boardroom meetings and boardroom meetings, like with J.K. Simmons barking at Steve Jobs and all this stupid stuff that was not really about Steve Jobs. You know, talk about his work, talk about what he was like, but. And then Ashton Kutcher was not good. He didn't have any screen presence. Like, the whole time you were just kind of like, oh, yeah, right, that's supposed to be Steve. But it pulls you out of it the whole movie. So I didn't like it. And sorry if I spoiled it, but it's not a good movie.
I've seen some people say they really loved it. And I'm like I've said before on Twitter, I'm glad people like it. But I really didn't. I couldn't agree more with everything that you just said. It was very surface level and it felt unfocused to me, and it felt like a fan movie, and it just felt like some guy stuffing in every event you've ever heard just so you could be like, oh yeah, I remember that part. Oh, I remember when I heard about that. Oh, that was cool when he did that thing, and now they're showing it in the movie. But ultimately, I found the character Steve Jobs, it was so much of a caricature that it ended up being hollow, and it was unbelievable for me.
Absolutely.
And I was like, "There's no human that's like this.
Yeah.
There's no way." It didn't show him as a person.
Yeah. There was this actor, Ashton Kutcher, is definitely not the right person. It was very surface level, very fan of him, and let me see how I can be that guy. But really aesthetically be that guy. That's about it, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, obviously because he wanted to walk like him, like everything was surface level and aesthetic, but it wasn't. Let me think about like why this character would behave why this person behaves this way, you know? Let me read a lot about like what people thought of him, what experiences people had with him and stuff, you know? Because I think that might help, but I don't know. I'm not an actor, but I just feel like it was just so hollow, man.
That reminds me of that YouTube video you posted. Was it on John's Facebook thread?
I don't know.
It was about the dude playing the I can never remember his name. Playing the new Batman.
Oh my gosh.
Hello.
Oh,
hello.
yeah.
Hello. Oh,
Okay, got it.
It was what's his name?
Ben Affleck.
Thank you, Ben Affleck. It was how
like,
Ben Affleck prepares for a movie role. It's like 8 seconds long.
I have to be Henry VIII in 5 minutes.
Yeah, like he all of a sudden realizes that he has to go start filming this movie. He goes, hello, hello, hello. Got it. He grabs his keys and he runs out. That was hilarious. So I watched Pirates of Silicon Valley, and I wouldn't say that I loved it, although the movie is a lot of fun. And Noah Wiley plays Steve Jobs. He actually looks a lot like him, which was surprising.
Too,
I like this movie in that it unlike Jobs, the movie, it showed Steve Jobs as like a person. Like he wasn't like this maniac, like this sociopathic dictator who people either hated or absolutely, were charmed by.
Yeah.
He was a normal dude who was making his way through life. He stumbled his way into technology and was very ambitious and very passionate about what he was doing. But ultimately, he was like a normal guy. And there's a lot of situations that he found himself in where in Pirates, he acted like a normal human being would. So I found that character to be much more relatable. I thought the Steve Ballmer character was borderline overbaked, but he was so funny because I kind of think that's probably what Steve Ballmer was like. He was just a jester.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason, Bill Gates wanted to have around. And let me back up a moment. I actually have a lot of respect for Steve Ballmer. He's a funny guy, and I think he's probably a super weird dude. But I've heard him speak on multiple occasions in person, and he's very charismatic, and he cares a lot about his business.
And he does know about tech,
He does know about tech. He's
not just a figurehead.
Yeah, exactly. He's not just a clown that they put up there to make everyone laugh. Like, he gets overzealous sometimes, but he does know what he's doing.
Sure.
But his character in this movie was hilarious.
It's actually really funny. This guy who played him is John DiMaggio, who is the voice of Bender in Futurama.
Oh, really?
And he's a voice actor. He's the voice of Bender in Futurama and Jake in Adventure Time. And I love that movie because they totally they give him really funny lines to say in this movie.
They do a lot, and he definitely adds the humor to the movie. Yeah. I thought Bill Gates was excellent.
Anthony Michael Hall, yeah.
Anthony Michael Hall, which first of all, who knew he was in this movie? I didn't.
Dude.
I mean, I always remember him from like the 80s movies,
This was his resurgence back into
movies. Was
it really?
Yeah.
People were like, whoa, he can act really well.
He was great. One of my favorite movies is Weird Science.
Yeah.
And he's in that. One of my all-time favorite movies.
Perfect.
So funny. So when I saw him, I was like, oh, I wonder if I'm going to be able to not see him as this actor in this role, but he did an outstanding job. The way he talked, unlike Ashton Kutcher, he nailed like Bill Gates' presence, and the way he spoke and the way he acted was so good, and he painted this really to me unknown picture of what Bill Gates was actually like. I mean, he was really hyper intelligent, really driven, and very competitive, and a little conniving.
Yeah.
Which when I see him in the media, when I see him do interviews and stuff, you would not think that there is so much texture to his personality, and there's a lot going on below the surface that you may not have ever have guessed. And the relationship that they portrayed between Bill and Steve was totally believable.
Yeah.
Just how they played off each other and how they probably interacted with each other in real life. And then also how Bill kind of manipulated Steve was completely believable. Because I think that Steve Jobs is probably one of those explosive personalities. And you've all had people in your life that have been explosive or they have really bad tempers. And the best way to deal with them is, by being gentle, by being calm, and just letting that storm pass. And that's how Bill treated Steve. And kind of stole from him in that way by gaining his trust and, getting access to things that maybe to information and the Mac prototype that maybe he would never have had access to if he wasn't close to Steve.
Keep your friends close and your enemies
Yeah,
close.
and it really does a good job at painting. There's one line from this movie that I thought was spot on, and it was the end of the movie. If you haven't seen it, fast forward 10 minutes.
I think I know what it is.
And this is when Steve Jobs finally realizes, because some of his employees have been telling him, like Bill Gates is stealing from you.
I knew this.
Like he's stealing from you, and this has been happening for a while, and Steve Jobs just didn't understand that this was happening. Mm-hmm. And Bill Gates, it's finally unveiled that, like, yes, indeed, Bill Gates is taking this technology and he's putting it into Windows. Mm-hmm. And Steve Jobs says to him, he's like, we're better than you. And Bill Gates is like, excuse me? He's like, our products are better than yours. And Bill Gates, total straight face, says, Steve, that doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And he was so right. It's like Bill Gates, to him, it was like the business practices, the contracts, getting his products out there. Like, he didn't care if his product was the best. He just wanted it to be he wanted to be the most used. Mm-hmm. And they had totally different goals. Yeah, totally different goals. Even up until now, I kind of feel like that's Microsoft's big struggle is like they're ubiquitous, but most people, especially of our generation, don't respect them as being a cool company. They don't have products that you really want to use. Right. They're just the products that you end up using. Sure. Whereas Apple's products are coveted. Right. Those are the ones everyone wants to have, most people, and are willing to spend the premium on to have. And even to this day, they're not everywhere. Windows is still way more popular, but Apple is much cooler, and everyone would agree their products are better. Mm-hmm. So it was just a really wonderful portrayal of these two technocrats and their approaches to doing the same thing, but they really have different ideas on what technology in the world looks like. Yeah. So I really liked it. I thought it was a good movie. As I said, not the best produced movie, but it was still a really fun movie, and especially towards the end, oh man, that Bill Gates, man, so good. I thought Woz was really good too. Who played him?
He's a pretty well-known actor. You wouldn't tell who he was without that makeup on.
I've seen him before, for sure.
There's actually a picture of him next to the real Woz.
Oh, really?
I think. No, I was gonna say I think I met him once.
Pirates.
One time I was at when I worked at Apple in LA. I stopped in my tracks because I recognized somebody from this movie. It was the guy that Bill Gates bought from the Seattle computer company or something. He bought their DOS. Mm-hmm. You remember that scene? Mm-hmm. And I saw that guy at the Apple store, and I was like, "You were in Pirates of Silicon Valley, right? You were that guy."
Oh, it was the actor.
Yeah, the actor. Yeah. He's like, "Yeah," and he knew a little bit about it, and he told me about it.
Joey Slotnick. Okay. He's been in all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I thought this movie portrayed the events that happened with Apple in a much more realistic light. Like, for instance, just comparatively, there was one event. There was the event in Jobs where they had the investor come in, right? The angel investor.
God.
And all of a sudden, Steve Jobs turns into this,
seasoned business
genius. Yeah, it was and he just starts talking in all these business terms and negotiating this deal, and he's a real, arm twister, and he's getting his way, and he has all these demands, and he gets the business deal that he wants, and just totally outthinks this guy who's trying to invest. And then in Pirates, the guy shows up, and he's just like, I want to invest in this company. And Steve asks him a few questions. It's kind of rude to him. And he's like, welcome aboard.
Yeah.
And I have to believe that's probably the way it actually went down.
Oh, I'm going to put in $250,000. And he's like, excuse me?
Yeah. And in Jobs, the guy, didn't he say I wanted to put in 100?
He's like, I want to put 80,000.
And Steve Jobs is like, oh, that's not the best you can do. And he's like, no?
Yeah.
Just totally giving in. He's like, no, I know you have more and you want to put in more. Almost playing Rasputin mind games with him. And the guy's like, yes, Mr. Jobs, I do want to put in more.
Jobs was the fan Bible, where you think that Steve Jobs had to have been awesome at everything since day one, right?
That's how he was portrayed.
And let's make it, let me write everything about him that's amazing and awesome. It's like,
yeah, and there's no way he was like that. He was a human being, and that was my biggest problem with this movie. And it's cool in Pirates when they were describing the relationship between Bill and Steve, it's like Bill knew how to manipulate him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's like a normal person. It just added depth to the characters. These people are real.
I thought it was there was a lot of good scenes there's a lot of scenes that are in both movies, but they're done very differently.
They are, very different movies.
And I liked stuff like that they did leave out, which was when they were first invited to Xerox PARC to see the first graphical user interface, where they both got the idea to do the Mac and Lisa and eventually Windows. That's always been really interesting to me, and I've ended up like trying to find other videos of like the first Xerox stuff, because they were the inventors of all that stuff. You know?
Which a lot of people probably don't know.
And they put that in the movie, which I thought was great. And I thought the movie, like you said, it was fun because unlike Jobs and unlike most movies, it's sort of told like somebody's telling you a story, like Woz is telling you the story from like
because he narrates a lot of it.
And so they even pull it out after they pan out in some instances where somebody will talk to the camera, like Ballmer talks to the camera.
That was so zany when that happened. I was like, what is going on? All of a sudden, he's like, hey, guys. And he's like getting all chummy with us. And he like steps out of the picture and starts having this conversation. And he has all these crazy jokes. He's like the jokester, right? He's like, we're totally going to work this business deal.
I thought it was just like interesting that I don't know, that you could still do a really great movie with those scenes without that part, but it's still kind of funny that they added that. Like same thing with Woz, like Woz is inside of the Macintosh and he's talking about how it works.
Very zany.
Yeah, but I thought this movie was definitely done better. I mean, it still gets the point across where it shows like the whole Steve or the whole Jobs movie where he's making phone calls and everyone's hanging up on him. That was kind of stupid because it wasn't really getting like a good point across as to he's struggling to try to get some venture capital for this for this thing, whereas in the Pirates of Silicon Valley, he's like, it shows a montage of him going to banks and then getting frustrated that people don't understand that he's trying to do this thing,
Yeah.
And I thought that was done way better. And then
it was a better narrative in Pirates.
Yeah.
Like, did you come out of Jobs thinking? At least I did. What was this about?
Yeah.
Like, what did we just see? What was the point of this?
It was all just scene after chunk after chunk of like, that was a Steve Jobs quote. That was something he said in like a YouTube video, like all these different like things that were direct. The fanboy that wrote this definitely took direct lines that were from interviews and put them into the movie.
I feel like he had a checklist.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, all the boxes are checked. Movie's done.
Yeah, it was really sloppy. But also, the other thing is, in Jobs, they don't even have Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, as you've seen, was parallel to the career of Steve Jobs throughout the whole time,
Yeah.
And I think that you don't have to have it be about both of them, but, I mean, you can't just skip over the fact that they were actually, coming up together, and that was... They were reinventing the whole computer industry together,
Yeah, well, creating the computer industry.
Creating it, yeah. So, there was a lot of really interesting stuff in there. And another movie that's a documentary that I feel like is almost the blueprint for this movie, is a PBS documentary called Triumph of the Nerds. Mm-hmm. And it's great. It's a 3-part documentary. I think it's on YouTube. I usually see it on there. And... it's produced. It's remember the Steve Jobs Lost interview?
Yeah.
So it's actually that, except that's just the whole excerpt without any edits. Mm-hmm. But that's the interview they used inside of this movie, and they talked to everybody. They talked to Bill Gates. They talked to like.
So it's like interspersed with like actual movie and not just interview stuff. Mm-hmm.
It's
cool.
It's really really good. And yeah, you should check that out because that movie paints a better picture of what was going on at the time and like the shift to actually forming a computer industry and stuff like that. And they talked, like I said, they talked to Steve Jobs before he was back at Apple, so he's still, like kind of doesn't have a way yet. But anyway, well, I'm glad that you liked it.
Yeah, I'm glad I finally saw it.
Yeah.
Because now people will stop making fun of me. Every time people find out I haven't seen that movie, they're like, dude, you haven't seen that movie?
Yeah.
I'm like, no!
I just still hope for a really good, big budget movie, but...
I think it's going to be great. Aaron Sorkin, if there's one thing that dude knows how to do, it's write a story.
I just hope that I just said this, and I did a little review. If you want to watch, it's on It's on YouTube.com/throwboypillows. I did a little review where me and my brother were talking about it, what we thought of it.
What did your brother think?
He said he gave it like a C-.
Okay, so he liked it a little bit more than you.
Yeah.
But not much.
We kind of were about the same.
Okay.
But we definitely had some big problems with it, which we talk about. But what I was saying is, okay, if they take the trouble to do another Steve Jobs movie, this will be number 3 movie. Mm-hmm. If they just skip over the next stuff and the Pixar stuff and go and spend way too much time in the garage, and then they go to maybe like the year 2000, like that would suck. That would be such a shame if they don't go up to past the year 2000 to where he comes back and the iPod and the iPhone. Like they could go and do all that kind of stuff. It's like, why not do that? Because a lot of people know their origin of where they started in the garage. Show some of that, but don't spend like forever on that, you know?
Yeah, I really hope they focus on a different time period.
Yeah.
Both these movies kind of focus on the same time period. This one came out in 1999, I think. So this one wasn't even made when the iPod was out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no way they could have put that in here. But yeah, hopefully the Aaron Sorkin version will focus more on that later life stuff. Mm-hmm. And maybe even on his death. I mean, his death was pretty incredible. Mm-hmm. I mean, the way it all happened and that part of his life was... And in fact, I was just watching... I watched the Stanford commencement speech. Mm-hmm. If you guys haven't seen Steve Jobs' Stanford commencement speech, it's on iTunes U. I think Stanford put it out. It's a video, and it's great. And you'll hear a lot of quotes that he makes in there, and you're like, I didn't realize Steve Jobs was quoting somebody else when he said that. But it's really great, and it's very kind of eerie because he talks about how he had cancer and how he was cured. Mm-hmm. And this is, of course, this is only 5 years before he died?
Right.
Oh, I guess 6 years before he died. So it's kind of strange hearing him talk about how he cheated death. Mm-hmm. Well, he doesn't say that. My words, not his. And then, he died. He's like, I found a way to stay alive forever. That's a quote. You can put that on the internet. So let's wrap up with this. Ballmdog, Steve Ballmdog Ballmer, through Microsoft, has announced that he is indeed retiring in the year 2030.
Get on your feet.
Woo! I'm trying to get that gurgle that he has. It's kind of hard. So great. And I played the Steve Ballmer remix. I don't know if you saw that.
That's what we were doing just now.
Penny's like, what the hell's going on over here? Woo! Woo! That's like her call. I don't know if I can find it though. So Steve Ballmer has announced that he is retiring in the next 12 months. Mm-hmm. Microsoft has put together a panel, including an agency that finds executives and Bill Gates to find a new executive. They said they're looking outside the organization and in to find a CEO.
Interesting.
I thought it was really funny that the agency, it's like an executive hiring firm. It's like something and struggles. It's like the second last name and the agency name. I thought that was really funny. They might struggle to really find someone, but this is a huge opportunity for Microsoft. They have totally reorganized their entire business.
Yeah.
All their companies have been totally changed. And I think it's pretty obvious to a lot of people who have seen what they've done. They're taking on a much more Apple-centric business model now. They're going to be focusing on devices. Yep. Guess who else does that? Cloud services. Guess who else does that? And then there's something else that I can't remember.
Services.
And, I said that. So services, devices, and something else.
Okay.
In any case, they are looking to sell products and services now, hardware and services. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
This is interesting. It's funny because they've been in business for 30-something years, right? And they have only had 2 CEOs, the founder and him.
Really?
Yeah, they've never had any
that's very true.
Apple's had a lot of CEOs, you know.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs wasn't an original CEO, contrary to a lot of people think. But so I mean that's kind of an interesting thing because they really put their DNA so to speak, into the structure of what that company was like and what the public perception is. I think we've talked about how, the public perceives them. They come off as good enough and still sort of lame, like that thing that is kind of for fuddy-duddies and it's not that cool.
It's not cool, yeah.
And it would be interesting if they could find somebody who could do something cool with them, but I don't think that's rare. It's rare when a CEO can come in and restructure and take a look at the whole package and go, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to do this in marketing. We need to do this and that. It was almost like that job scene, which I think was probably fiction, where he's like, we're going to make Apple cool again. We're going to make Chiat our only advertising agency, and we're going to blah, blah, blah.
Because that's what you need to be cool,
yeah.
Chiat.
So, like, I mean, there has been companies that have done this, right? Like, I think Harley Davidson did this. Like, they kind of reinvented themselves, and now they're kind of like a super brand, right?
Ray-Ban, although Ray-Ban didn't do it, they did it through Luxottica.
Oh, okay. And then, yeah, there's been businesses where their brand definitely is not cool, and then they do something. Arguably, Apple did it, right?
It's amazing that companies can do this, isn't it?
It's because people have that. They
have
still
a short-term memory,
but they have that awareness of that brand name, and they can kind of like I think it takes some pretty big brilliance to be able to do that.
It takes a lot of bravery too, and it takes a lot of vision. That's what they really need.
So they need something like that because I don't want them to descend by any means. And I also don't want them to become like a Yahoo type of company or like a Google where they just keep recycling out CEOs and they never have any vision. And like Yahoo, I mean, I'm sure they make a lot of money because their website is actually very popular, right? And they have they're always buying stuff, but they're not considered cool and they just kind of like exist, and I think that would suck if Microsoft just kind of treaded along because they're trying to take big risks, and I think that they could probably do it if they had the right kind of marketing muscle behind it and all that
and
kind
they need
of stuff.
a strong vision for the company.
Yeah.
I mean, they need to be unified in a vision, and that's gonna be the key, I think. I mean, they're gonna have to find someone who could unify all their people. I mean, they have a lot of smart people. I grew up in Redmond. Some of you know that. I've worked for Microsoft before. I've been on their campus a lot. They're an amazing company, and they have a lot of potential.
Yeah.
And with my respect for them, I poke a lot of fun at them, and I'm an Apple guy, which people think is hilarious. But I like good technology, and I think that's really what I'm most passionate about. And I think Apple makes amazing products, and they're superior, and I think their services are also really awesome. But I think Microsoft can make a huge comeback. They obviously have the money.
Yep.
They have money, just like rolling out their pockets. And they have a lot of really smart people who are really dedicated to the company. I also think they need to trim the fat. There's a lot of people there that probably need to go because they're just there to get a paycheck.
Yep.
And those are not the people that you want working for a company that you're trying to totally redo. Hi. You want to say something about Microsoft? No, you just want to listen?
Taco
okay.
Bell.
You want to put in a good word for Taco Bell? hey man, don't joke about that. You got any Taco Bell? You got any of those churros? Those are my favorite, man.
Actually,
I do have a churro here. Oh man.
I don't know who should be more offended, the dog or me.
Those are so good. Dude, you're Peruvian. You don't care.
I know, but it was funny.
Yeah, you would never eat a churro. You're like, churros. So anyway, exciting time, and hopefully in the next 6 to 8 months we find out who Microsoft's new CEO is going to be. I think Don Matrick, he was the vice president of entertainment, the entertainment business, the Xbox guy. I think he wanted it. I think he wanted the job really bad. I think he wanted the job really bad, and when he didn't get it, that's when he was like, peace out. Peaced out.
Wait,
dude.
was that the guy that tweeted like, if you live in Podunk?
No, that was a lead designer. Don Matrick was the guy that you always see in the Xbox picture, and he's like presenting it.
Oh, does he have a shaved head?
No. This is I bet you'll recognize him when you see him. It's this guy.
Oh, yeah.
He just went as CEO to Zynga, and rumor has it that he really wanted to be CEO of Microsoft.
Okay.
And I guess, according to the rumor, he wasn't gonna get it, and he was like, all right.
He looks like the guy from Zynga, actually.
I read an expose about this guy, And it's actually pretty remarkable. He's like super eccentric, really into like Lamborghinis, lives in Vancouver, and when he had to be on campus, he would fly his own personal jet there. Just like really, really kind of wild personality.
Maybe that would have been a good fit.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe they have somebody internally already. Maybe they should start looking because
they have a lot of smart people.
Yeah, they have a lot of smart people, and Xbox formed out of Microsoft, and Xbox is a great brand, and
Xbox is a great brand.
They did a good job of making that their own distinct thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean they did it with Xbox, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's a cool brand.
Yeah.
People don't even think that. Oh my gosh, Microsoft makes this.
Yeah. Microsoft, even just the name sounds nerdy.
It is totally.
But they managed to do a great job with the feelings you get from talking about Xbox, being in Xbox, and all that kind of stuff. People love Xbox. But that's probably the one and only thing they've ever done that has that kind of brand feel to it.
Brand appeal.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, you don't get that from the Zune. You don't get that from Bing.
Oh, Bing, man. Oh, my gosh. There's certain things that Microsoft makes that they're just so incredibly uncool to me that I'm like, they need to rebrand that as something cool. I think... Tell me if you disagree. Bing is such a terrible brand name. Bing!
Yeah.
It just makes me not want to use it just because the word is so bad.
Yeah, I guess.
Does that not bother you as much?
No. I think I understand what you mean though, but I feel like that about the name Microsoft because it's just so nerdy.
Yeah.
That's a hard one, and there's not even a good thing you could shift it to, like how Federal Express is now FedEx. You can't even change Microsoft to something. Shorten it. A lot of companies have done that. Hewlett Packard is the real name, but I think it's officially now HP. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like they can't even really do that because MS means multiple sclerosis, right?
I was thinking the same thing. Like that's not gonna work.
Yeah. So I don't know what to say. That. But maybe it's not that important because sometimes those name things kind of melt away. Like Google probably sounded stupid. Yahoo is a weird name too, right?
I really dislike Yahoo's branding. And the exclamation point on the end, I'm like, who says Yahoo anymore? It's like such a 90s phrase. That's pretty good. It's such a 90s phrase. Like Yahoo!
Yeah.
No one says that anymore. Anyway, all right, cool. Well, let's wrap it up there then.
Okay. Let's take us home.
Hey, did you know that we have both audio and video versions of this podcast available on iTunes? You can subscribe to either. Just search for User Friendly on iTunes, and both should pop up. Just look for this. I think my hair is about this much bigger in that photo.
Where I'm actually going,
and I'm like, And you can subscribe to either of those. We're also available on YouTube. That's just youtube.com/user-friendly-show. And if I wanted to follow you on social media, where would I go to do that?
You can go to Twitter. I'm at Roberto Hoyos, RobertoHoyos, and what I do, throwboy.com. What about you?
I'm at Erfon on Twitter. Please tweet me. Let me know how much you hated or liked our last shows.
Yeah.
We have a guest. We should get a guest on. You guys can be like, that was the worst guest ever.
I'll be a guest.
You're such a chode. You lost a fan for the rest of your life. I'm going to blow up your car. I know where your mom lives, and I'm going to murder her.
I've gotten death threats.
Yeah.
But...
Hey, guys, I'm leaving the show. Why? Well, people gave me death threats. Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and retire while I'm still living. I think that's everything. Is there anything else that we miss?
No, but thank you guys for watching.
Or listening.
And
we'll see you guys
next
on
Monday.
The next show on Monday. On Monday. Possibly Tuesday or Wednesday. Audio guys, see you Friday.